and this is my experience, I watch so many Negro men in particular tell me why they voted for Trump.
Ooh.
I am stunned at the number of Black men who tell me they voted for Donald Trump. I am shocked at the number of people in barbershops everywhere. When I talk to them, they be like, "Yo, I voted for Trump, man. I couldn't." It's either I couldn't vote for Kamala, or I really rock with Trump. They whisper it, but the whispers, which were more prominent in 2016, excuse me, are now they kind of saying it like with their chest out. Like, I voted for Trump. I rock with Donald. I don't know what we're talking about. Black women, and I don't believe that we should be loyal to the Democratic Party at all, but I think we should be loyal against Donald Trump. Black women were more loyal to, Black women were fairly unanimous in not voting for Donald Trump. White women sold us the F out. Yeah, I didn't expect nothing from white men. So I guess my question is, with so much at stake around Black reproductive justice, around DEI, around the Supreme Court, around education, around housing, all these things, for Black men to vote, and again, Black men didn't vote like 90% for Trump or anything like that. You know, Black men are the second most loyal group to Democrats other than Black women. So I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but there's a way that I'm hearing Black men talk about the support of Trump that shocks me. And I hear some people saying, well, Black men are the weakest link here. They're the problem. When you hear that language of Black men being the weakest link, what do you say?
Okay. So, I mean, the language is always going to be troubling for me. I want to point that out. What I think is we have a lot of people, inclusive in that, some Black men, prefacing this. And I think it's important to say that there are a lot of people who are not men, who are seduced by the allure of getting to do what white men do with impunity. And that level of aggrandizing and feeling connected to this idea that I want this thing, right? We know it's not a liberatory politic. We've seen this time and time again with a number of groups. That the impunity that white men have, it's why we are like, well, what about this person when there's some kind of sexual violence allegation against someone who's Black or someone who's brown or someone who's a non-white person? And I think that says a lot about where we are in terms of being able to galvanize in this moment about the fact that we are so fractured and we are so deeply tethered to this idea that white men's power is what is seductive and that's what we want, that we have lost track of what liberation could and should look like. And I think that we can talk about the ways that an investment in patriarchy plays out in this, how misogyny plays out in this, how the unique position of Black men in this country and their relationship to power or lack thereof can make patriarchy even more seductive, can make misogyny even more seductive for some. But I think what we really have to get at is that a lot of folks are invested in that kind of ethic as a one that's about liberation. Because if you can't imagine a world in which getting to do what fucked up white men do with impunity is the standard by which you know you're free, then we're not really talking about freedom.
That's a powerful point. Slap, you be outside, reasonably so, in all the respectable and acceptable ways that one can be outside at our age. You're in the community, is what I mean. You engage folk. When you hear what Treva just said, when you hear what I just said, how do you make sense of it? I mean, you know, I know you know Black men. We even talked about this before, but I know you know Black men that voted for Trump or supported Trump, or at least didn't vote in a way that would lead to him not being president. How do you process that, especially in light of what Treva just said around people, some of our investments in patriarchy, some of our investments in kind of not Trump per se, but what Trump represents, etc. What do you say?
So to be fair, and not to be hyperbolic in any way, right, is that one, I live in a Black ass city, Let me just state
Yeah,
that.
you're Baltimore.
Yes. I also am a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I am a proud Mason of Prince Hall. And I'm going to tell you flat out, I don't know no black men that voted for Trump, or at least it was said to me. I think that the people that I do know, understood the assignment, as they would say, right? And they knew that we were entering into dangerous times, even if you had one aspect of, and I think this was the problem was with a lot of males that you're speaking of. And by the way, I want to state for the record that when this thing came across the screen, I immediately got offended, and I was just like, Jesus. But I want to state that there wasn't anybody that I knew that voted that way, or at least would open-handedly admit it, because a lot of people understood that even the one thing or the one way that they agreed with Trump's policies, or that he's a businessman, or that he might be better for their bottom line or whatever, they knew that he was destructive in several other ways. Whether it is that, you know what, this candidate isn't good for my wife, he's not good for my daughter, he's not good for my mother, right? And but the one thing that I do know is that the men that I know, and I'm using that term, you know what I'm saying, not loosely, that the men that I know really do protect black women. The men that I don't know do stand with black women. They believe in black love. They believe in the continuity of the black family. And so they knew that this guy was against that. And so they just didn't bother. And then let me just go ahead and say that I'm fortunate enough to have a really, really good bullshit meter. And if, I see that you ain't on the shit I'm on, then you got to get on. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I ain't gonna shoot you like Harriet Tubman, but you can get the fuck away from me. You know what I'm saying? And that's just as real as I can be. So, an attack on women's rights was an attack on my rights. An attack on gay rights is an attack on my rights. Attack on, anything black culture is an attack on me. So I couldn't say, oh man, you're gonna save me $10,000 as a tax break. So I'm gonna vote for you because my pocket's gonna be a little bit better. All while you charge me on the back end for these hospital bills for abortions and childbirth and all the things that my people may need. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't never relate to it, and people I know didn't relate to it. So that's why when you put "Are black men the weakest link?" maybe something that you know, not the ones that I know, because you come in the barbershop with that shit around me, I might pay the barber a little extra to, your hairline. You know what I'm saying? So
I respect that. Chris, I want to weigh. By the way, Treva Lindsey, I want to give you a shout out for not rolling your eyes when he said he was a Kappa. Treva, jump one in. Chris, jump one in.
Yo, the smartest thing I could say right now is 3 words. What Treva said.
Wow. Say less.
Because that's it.
Yeah. No, that's real. We can leave it right there. Let's
a little something. I think, and this is coming up in some of the comments, we have to add in like where Black religiosity happens in this conversation, where a lot of these spaces, people have mentioned the manosphere, and different spaces, there are different institutions that are built. And I want to be clear here that there are still large parts of our population that extremely are conservative in various ways, socially conservative, that are, there are people who I think go into these spaces, and we saw this in 2016 when it came to Hillary, and white women being like, go in with their white suits on and their pen and vote quite differently. And I think that I saw it just by sheer number, because I'm sitting in my mind like, I also don't know Black men who voted for Trump, and yet the numbers tell me something else, right?
And a lot of them lied.
And a lot of them lied, but I think we have to be really honest about the role that misogyny and misogynoir specifically plays. I think we have to be really honest about the ways that particular sects of the Black church can play in this. I think we have to be very honest about the way that even particular kind of heteronormative, this kind of notion of Black family can also work against this. I am certainly not lost on me that I talked to a number of brothers who were talking to me about Kamala being married to a white man as a reason they would not support her, that at least
Which is
Trump.
wild to me.
So those are conversations that I did have, and I knew that conservatism in our community, being in a community at once that saw that, a banner up, right? The biggest threat to the Black family is abortion, or the most dangerous place for a Black child is in a Black woman's womb. Like, there were just so many things that come up that spoke into something that I think we have to feel about what patriarchy does in our community and what the institutions in our communities that reproduce that patriarchal system do, and then impact electoral outcomes in very real ways for Black communities, Black gender folks across the board.